Springtime is in the air, and it won't be long before those hills in the background will be green with the foliage of summer. For those who like the gray, bleak, dreary state of winter, I've got you covered. If you're one of those people who prefer the somber overcast of the cold weather season, I give you the train below. This is the southbound Binghamton, New York to Roanoke, Virginia train 11Z. As I've said in many prior videos, the train 11Z was the straight line that we followed for so many years here on this channel. Having been a southbound from Bingo Town train since January of 2016, the Z, the Zipper or the Zulu, or any other nickname you may fancy, remained an unchanged train to Enola for around 4 years. In 2020, and with the full implementation of Norfolk Southern's Top 21 Precision Scheduled Railroading Initiative, NS's train symbol lineup was changed to the point that it's unrecognizable to me today. The Z, the subject of this topic, was extended to Roanoke from Enola for about another 5 years. On April 21, 2025, the straight line of the former 11Z was cut back from Binghamton to Enola, Pennsylvania, and extended south from Roanoke to the Butts Yard in Chattanooga, Tennessee, making train 11Z an Enola to Chattanooga train, thus ending nearly a decade of that train symbol in northeastern Pennsylvania. It also makes this particular train 11Z the last one that I recorded. The train itself still runs up and down the line, but now it's called something else. We'll talk more about that a little later in the video. For now, the main subject of this video is not the train 11Z, but the railroad junction that it's passing. The Hyde Park Y, commonly called the Steamtown Y, is the fifth or the first depending on which direction you're moving of 5 of the hottest railroad junctions in NEPA. We talked about the others in the last video of this series. I'll leave a link to it in the description box just in case you missed it. The other 4 junctions are the DuPont Junction at CP 679, which is something of an unofficial division point on the railroad that separates the Sunbury and River lines. Then there's the Minooka Junction, CP 673 and CP 672, all of which are part of the Taylor Yard and all of which were discussed in that last video of this series. The Steamtown Y is the main gateway into Steamtown from the west and a former property of the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western. To the east, compass south, the railroad line extends up and into the Pocono Mountains region and into Stroudsburg and the Delaware Water Gap. This location was once part of the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad, which ran between Hoboken, New Jersey, and Buffalo, New York. The Lackawanna began its existence as the Leggett's Gap Railroad to haul anthracite coal from the Lackawanna Valley around Scranton to a connection with the Erie Railroad at Great Bend, Pennsylvania. The Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western, better known as the DL&W, later built east to reach the Delaware River and using leases and mergers reached Hoboken. Other extensions to the west eventually reached Buffalo. The Lackawanna became a profitable railroad, using its wealth to improve its property to provide greater speed and efficiency. The key examples of this were the construction of the Lackawanna Cutoff and massive concrete viaducts at Paulin's Kill and the Delaware River in New Jersey, and the Nicholson Cutoff, including the Tunkhannock and Martins Creeks viaducts between Scranton and Binghamton in Pennsylvania. The Sunbury and now River lines are north-to-south rail lines in a largely east-to-west world. The portion of the Sunbury that this train's DPU is moving over is the former DL&W Bloom line, which ran from the Steamtown Y to Northumberland, Pennsylvania, where it interchanged with the Pennsylvania Railroad and also with the Reading along the way near Rupert, Pennsylvania. Fast forwarding back into springtime, the train moving past the Steamtown Y today is not the train 11Z anymore, but is now the local train symbol H61. Same train, new symbol. And did you notice the locomotive numbers on this train? AC44, C6M number 4444 and 4447, made for almost a perfect brother-sister locomotive mashup. The Alco-powered Delaware-Lackawanna short line uses both legs of the Steamtown Y on an almost daily basis. The train that we see here is using the south leg of the Y and is moving into Steamtown as it's returning from Taylor Yard with a heavy load of grain and general freight that will move east and up the steep grade out of town and south to the Ardent Mills milling facility at Pocono Summit. Interchange trains that are bound for Taylor Yard will usually use the north leg of the Y, such as today's train is doing. It's now the day after that H61 that we just saw, and notice how the track bends under the Linden Street overpass. That's so that double-stack containers have sufficient vertical clearance. What makes the Steamtown Y one of the hottest railroad junctions in NEPA is the regularity in which the DL and NS trains meet. Stretched around the Y and over the Bridge 60 into Steamtown is the train DL3. Coming up the hill on the Norfolk Southern is newly minted train symbol H60, formerly the train 10Z. And in addition to the AC44C6M number 4444 returning north from its southbound Enola journey yesterday, second out is a now rare DC-powered -944CW number 9919 that's living on borrowed time as it awaits its day to join its AC-powered leader in the ranks of the AC44C6Ms. Another bonus to today's meet is the dueling locomotive horns of both the main line and the short line freights. What you just saw is sometimes called a zipper meet. Ironic considering that the former 10Z and 11Z trains that were often called the zipper trains, as we talked about earlier in the video. Another anomaly of today's H60 is the solid manifest of empty waste containers heading back to the Pan Am Southern and New England. That bright orange contraption hugging the rails is called a derail. It serves to prevent unauthorized locomotives and cars from entering the main line. Also take note of the blue painted rail joints. These identify where the DL ends and the NS begins. In customary railroad fashion, the crew of the DL performs a visual inspection of the H60, which is known in railroad vernacular as a roll-by inspection. As soon as the H60's marker clears the junction at Steamtown North, the DL3 engineer notifies the crew of the Binghamton-bound train of a good roll-by. But before the DL train can move on to the main line, permission must be obtained from the NS dispatcher. Once authorization has been given, the conductor opens the derail and reverses the main line switch. As you just saw, once the derail has been opened and the junction switch has been reversed for the Y, the alkals come to life while belching diesel exhaust as they slowly move out onto the main line for the 1 mile reverse ride down to CP72 and Taylor Yard. Once the DL3 train is completely on the main, the conductor realigns the mainline junction switch to normal, locks it as well as closes and locks the derail. Once all of the securement has been done, the engineer tones up the NS dispatcher to let them know that the main line has been secured. Once that confirmation is made, the train slowly reverses south to Taylor Yard.
DL3 Steamtown south, or Steamtown north line check, derail final line. Double.
Today's DL3 manifest is a 2x33, which means that there are only 2 loads along with 33 empty cars. The loaded cars are the 2 black and yellow TTX boxcars 3rd and 4th out. These boxcars were loaded on the south side of town, and we'll be taking a closer look at that operation in a future video. The black tank cars probably came out of the propane unloading facility in Toby Hanna. That man that you just saw walking is Vinny, and he's a locomotive engineer for CSX on the Mohawk subdivision between Syracuse and Albany, New York. Today I'm riding shotgun with him as we chase the Portland turn job through the Poconos. The 2 NS gondola cars 1st and 2nd out are 2 rarities. Until a few years ago, gondolas were a rare sight on the DL but started showing up on the regular around 2023. This train, K81, not K82, shown slowly creeping down grade and into Taylor Yard, had loaded gondolas for the DL at the end of their train. The DL promptly picked up these cars in Taylor Yard later that day and moved them to Ridge Row, where they sat for a pretty long time. Notice the two reporting marks on the two NS guns. One is Norfolk Southern proper and the other is AOK, which is the Arkansas and Oklahoma Railroad. Due to legal reasons, car owners sometimes have to use an actual railroad's reporting marks on rolling stock. Why NS needs to use the AOK when they have reporting marks of their own is a mystery to me, but another AOK reporting mark is the AOKX. The X denoting that it's a privately owned car and not a car owned by a railroad. Are you confused yet?
Clear 25. 25.